Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Box Score Sports YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ryan. On today's clip, we are going to predict, I mean by we, I mean I am going to predict the series between the Spurs and the Timberwolves. We're going to go over what we learned in the last series. We're going to do our pros and cons. We're going to talk about matchups and X factors. Let me know before I get into it what your predictions are. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And here we go. So let's talk about how the Spurs got here. They kind of had sort of one of the easier matchups in the series. They beat the Blazers, and I think the Blazers challenged them in some pretty good ways, but they beat them in five. And Victor had that one game where he went out with the concussion. I think if he doesn't get hurt, they probably sweep the Blazers. Some pros that came out of that series is obvious, like you get your feet wet. Like it's like going into a pool, but you didn't have to go all the way in the deep end right away. But you get used to kind of the playoff basketball before you meet like the real competition. And I think that's good for the Spurs. They're still a young team. And for a young team, they really took this challenge seriously. And I think that's a pro that came out of round one. They didn't dilly-dally. They didn't play with their food. They went in and they won the series in five. Fox had some good games. It's good to see him come alive in the playoffs. Some people were questioning whether, maybe they'll move on from him or whatever, but him showing that veteran leadership. Castle and Harper, the moments that they had, especially Harper in the game, I think game three it was, which he played excellent for the Spurs. It just shows that these young guys are not afraid of the moment, and obviously Victor's Victor. He's so good. He is an alien. He is an exception to every single rule, and as long as he's on the court, that defense is going to play at such a high level. Now, the only con that I could think of coming out of the series is that there was a couple of games where the Spurs were down at halftime by multiple, by double digits. And it's just like, you know, is it a little bit of the youth playing into it? And if they're playing a better team, is it going to be as easy for them to come back? So they were down a couple times at halftime. I know for sure one time it was by double digits, and they came back and won. The Blazers shot 29% from three. That's partly because of the Spurs defense, but it's also because they're not a good shooting team as well. So with that in mind, that would be the only con I could really think of coming out of that series when they're playing a more experienced team, a more like veteran team or a team that's been through it before, like, I don't know, the Timberwolves. Maybe that might come back to haunt them. Now, the Wolves, they came and they kind of embarrassed the Nuggets. I think most people would say, and they won in 6 games, and the way they beat the Nuggets was kind of embarrassing. I was embarrassed. I thought Jokic could do it, but he couldn't, and the Wolves move on. And I mean, some of the pros that came out of that is Rudy Gobert's defense was just excellent on Jokic for most of that series. McDaniels showed up in a big way, especially the last game. He got 30 points, and he just seemed to be all over Jamal Murray, who shot like 4 of 19 or 4 of 20. He just couldn't make a bucket. Ao DeSumo is good, and if he can be healthy, I think that's an addition to that team. And Randall just consistently, he was good throughout that series. He had a couple average games, but most of his games were really good, and the Wolves are going to need that. Now, the biggest con, obviously, for the Wolves coming into this series is the injuries. DiVincenzo's injured. I'm recording this right before the game starts in a couple hours here tonight, and Ao is out already. Edwards is game time decision, but I just don't know how much you can trust him. So it's just a bummer because with all the injuries, now if any team might be able to overcome it, the Wolves are a deep team. They had some young guys really step up in the last round, but the Spurs are just a different beast. Their defense is elite, and as long as Victor's healthy, I just don't see how with the injuries, how the Wolves can come out of this series in a good way with the injuries. That's a huge con in my opinion, with DiVincenzo, Edwards, and Ao all suffering injuries in a variety period of time. So let's talk about some of the matchups we're looking forward to in this series. The biggest one is going to be Victor. Sorry about that. Victor versus Rudy Gobert, right? That's going to be a huge matchup. he played excellent defense on Jokic, but Jokic missed a lot of threes and take opportunities to shoot threes. And although I think obviously we would all agree Jokic is a far better playmaker than Victor right now, Victor has the ability to score like no one else because he's 7'7" or whatever he is, 7'6". So I think for Gobert that's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I also I just wonder, as far as the other matchups, I was thinking about this. There's not like an Edwards versus Castle. That would be a fun matchup to watch if Edwards is healthy. There's not really someone I'm looking forward to covering Randall. I don't know who's going to cover Randall. That's going to be an interesting wrinkle because I feel like the Wolves could go big on the Spurs with Randall, Reed, and Gobert, which they did against the Nuggets. And I think that could throw a wrench into going a little bit bigger on the Spurs and see what they do when they're playing like Castle and Johnson, I think, is only 6'6". It's just, to me, and Fox, it's just like if they go big, that might be their only shot at actually making this a competitive series with Naz Reid, Julius Randle, and Gobert. The X factors for both sides. I picked an X factor for both sides. I have McDaniels. He's going to be an X factor. They're really going to need him to play a really good defense. I wonder if they'll try him on Victor Wembanyama. It's very possible they might because he's long, but he's like 6'9". But Victor's, like I said, 7'7". So that I don't know how much that's going to matter. I think he's going to be the X factor for the Timberwolves, and the X factor for me for the Spurs is going to be Castle, especially if Edwards is healthy. If Edward come back healthy in like game 2, Castle's got a big defensive assignment. Now, the nice thing that Castle has is he has behind him the best shot blocker in the league, so he can press up on people more than most other teams can, like other guards can who play elite defense. So I'm looking forward to the Castle and Edwards matchup because Castle with Victor Wembanyama behind him is going to cause Edwards to have some difficulties, I think. So that is the two X factors to look out for. Now, as far as picks, Clint, he picked the Spurs in 6. I have the Spurs in 5. Because I just think the injuries. I'm really nervous. It's again like Edwards might come back, but it's a little too soon for my liking. So I don't like that because it might mean that he might get injured in a bigger way, and we don't want that. So I'm a little nervous about that. But I'm gonna pick the Spurs in 5, and hopefully the Wolves can make it a series. It'd be awesome if Edwards and the Wolves can take them to 6 or 7, and we get the round 2 matchup we deserve. But I'm going to pick the Spurs in 5. Let me know in the comments down below your prediction, who you got, why, some of the X factors. And I'll tell you, if you want more of a breakdown, where me and Clint, my co-host, we're going to talk about on the podcast, we're going to break down all the series of round 1. And then we're going to talk about round 2 a little bit more in depth. But this was just a quick 10-minute video to give you my quick thoughts before the game starts. We'll have a couple other clips out in the next couple days as well. So look out for those. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll talk to you in a little bit. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.